Hey, welcome back to the lecture. So in this lecture, let's explore about the access levels of the processor. And I have listed here a couple of points. So let's discuss one by one. Okay. The first point is the processor offers two access levels. Okay. So the one is called privileged access level. Okay. And another one is non-privileged access level. So why these access levels? Okay, we have to understand. So that is really interesting. Okay, so now let's say if your code is running with privileged access level, then your code has full access. That means it has full privilege to access all the processor specific resources and restricted registers. That means a processor will have some restricted registers, okay, and the processor demands that the processor's access level must be privileged in order to change the content of that restricted registers. Okay, so that's the meaning of that. So suppose if your code is running with non-privileged access level, that is NPAL, then your code may not have access to some of the restricted registers of the processor. Okay, that makes sense, isn't it? Now the important thing is, by default your code will always run in the privileged access level. Okay, so always your code will run by default in privileged access level. When the processor is in thread mode, okay, it's possible to move the processor into non-privileged access level. Okay, once you move out of the privileged access level to the non-privileged access level, being in thread mode, okay, then it's not possible to come back to the privileged access level unless you change the processor's operational mode to handler mode. Okay, so if you are confused, don't worry. Okay, so these are very simple, okay, while executing some codes on the microcontroller. So if you have any doubts, then it will get clear, no problem. Okay, so the fourth and fifth points are actually related. Okay, so you know that by default the operational mode of the processor is thread mode, isn't it? So that means by default the thread mode of the processor will run in privileged access level. Okay, and when your code is running in the thread mode with privileged access level, it's possible to change the access level to non-privileged access level. Okay, but once you do that, you cannot come back to the privileged access level, okay, unless you change the operational mode of the processor to the handler mode. Okay, so we'll see that while doing some exercises. Okay, great. Now the sixth point is when the processor is in handler mode. Okay, so when the processor will be in the handler mode, when it is executing the exception handler or the interrupt handler, isn't it? Okay, which you have already seen. Okay, so when the processor is executing in handler mode, the access level will always be privileged. Okay, so handler mode code execution is always with privileged access level. Okay, now the seventh point is use the control register of the processor if you want to switch between the access levels. Okay, so there is one register called control register, okay, so which you have to configure if you ever want to change the access level to non-privileged mode, because everything starts from privileged access level by default. Okay, if you ever want to move out of the privileged access level, then you have to change something in the control register, okay, which we'll see while doing the code exercise.